mono to mono comparison of how to use sound pixels or the trademark game, I guess, Meta. I am clearly a fan of CAP. I am also a bigger fan of open source, and I'd rather people actually experiment with stuff than to feel locked out. So you can see how clearly. Actually, this one here is one of my favorite speakers. It's like, as far as like my portable, like, you know, I suggest people get them for like outdoor picnics, throw them in a swimming pool and they float, throw them in the shower, throw them in the toilet, they're just really good speakers. They have active problems. Meaning that when they point them at you, they're very bright. Off axis, they're still pretty bright. They're meant to be pointing straight upward. So they have issues. They're basically a bazooka sub. So you can see after driving top. And this guy on the bottom. So that means that when you place this thing on top of like a surface, it kind of adds a little bit of rumble. So this ring here should add a little bit of rumble here. A little buddy there, right? Alright. So that's what a Soundcore Nano is. And as you can see, it's about 1/3 the size of the prototype, which is only this big. And I had a hard time positioning it, so I don't want to like reposition it again because this thing rumbles like crazy. Okay. Probably gonna rumble this thing off actually now that I think about it. So let's do a switch. But do you see how the line on 50? 50 is chest bump frequency. That's pretty much one of the most important frequencies that you could ever have. That is pretty much the frequency that fools people into thinking that speakers are good. Like how JBL has basically this walled garden that has everyone think that like JBL is live sound. Because when you go into arenas and cinemas, they have JBL and you hear robots fighting, and that's live sound. But enough, yeah. Well, yeah, like, anyway. Tests are modeled after the Generation style reference, which is where they actually modeled after real life sounds. So, I modeled these actually after these. So, as good as I can get them, they're still 1/5 the size, and I'm still working on this. And they're coming on pretty good. So I'm switching right now. But notice how the line of 50. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop. I can't go down, not low. Now let's switch to the prototype. So I had to turn on my deck. And then now it's switch back over again because now it's not the exact same. And that's, I guess, what the hell they're again. Pause buttons for. Try not to pause too much. It's kind of annoying. But I think you guys actually would prefer a pause minute. So, okay, I'm going to switch back to the Soundcore Nanos, which again, I actually like these guys. and I promote them. But when there's something that doesn't exist, that, you know, I can't buy, I can't promote them. So I just kind of, you know, make them. So, I also teach other people how to make them too, because if it doesn't exist, what else are you gonna do but try to, you know, if anyone else is interested, then they could also make them too. But watch how the most crucial range of 50, these are maxed out, by the way. With all that, with the AVLs and everything, it could never ever compete with Sound Pixels. Because Sound Pixels are just way more sophisticated. Because you could actually tune Sound Pixels, and you could do anything the hell you want with Sound Pixels. And you could perfect Sound Pixels just like the way you could perfect the room acoustics in your room. Want to hear that again? So these actually, when I first got them, I was like, hey, the bass ain't that. But you know, they're just Bluetooth speakers. They're just like BT boombox type things, you know, and it has an AVR, so pretty rad. But then, when you actually start making stuff yourself, you realize that you can actually do other. And this thing is also single point, by the way. Meaning that, see, no home filtering? You can tell that, I won't say too much. And also I don't want to say too much because I want the DIY community to kind of like, you know. All I gotta tell you is basically that this thing's a music instrument. The proportions that are actually used are not very much different than the same way that you tune a guitar. Notice how a guitar isn't just like, you know, the first fret is like, you know, a perfect integer of the second fret, which isn't a perfect integer of the second fret, third fret, on and on. That's how you want it. You want it to transition. You want it to actually be harmonic. Because there is no such thing as perfection. You want these things to sound more musical than the actual recording is supposed to be. And I know that measurement freaks are gonna be mad at me for saying that, but the truth is that's always been a trick in the studio. One through punk rock music. Explain that to me, guys. If they power chord a chord, so the regular Bluetooth that's 3 times the size could never ever play anything nearly as close to as full or as high fidelity or as good as Sound Pixels. Or well, I guess what Kev's calling it. You know, Amtech. I don't want to use any brand names because I want to keep this open source. Where is it again? And it's all coming out of this little baby right here. And this is only tuned to sound like my favorite speakers. These guys. I can actually tune to sound like anything I wanted them to sound like. Because if you knew how they worked, you literally control the air on the inside. So rather than just letting the air on the inside dominate and then trying to make up for it by maybe, I guess using an AVR or something like that. So when you have a tube, it's gonna have a resonant frequency. This thing has no resonant frequency because whenever it needs a resonant frequency, it has a whole entire array of resonant frequencies. The trick is just to simply remind yourselves that speakers are actually music instruments, and the purpose of music instruments are to sound good. When they first designed in the 90s, especially the fluff rock sound, that defined the whole entire genre of music because they were able to get that really hard edge metal sound to sound very, very deep energy. And that across the pond from contemporaries came to Lust. Blood Valentine. Grunge, the grunge scene used a lot of it. Well, the purpose of making speakers is, again, to make a speaker that sounds as good as possible. And I'm going to be doing a little thing afterward that's going to be proving that tests are BS. And it's actually really easy to prove. It's so easy to prove, it's ridiculous. There's actually documentation behind it. And here, let me ask you just one simple question to ponder. Here, let me turn off my little baby, little friggin' prototype that managed to play better than, why the hell would Tannoy be synonymous with mono speakers? Why would the BBC hire 3 different companies over several years in a very, very expensive project just to get stereo down? Think about that. Just think about that. If it was true that one mono speaker times 2 equals a stereo soundstage, and so if you were to perfect one mono speaker and then double it, then you would have, I guess, a perfect stereo soundstage. What happened to Tannoy? Why the hell did the BBC invent stereo standardized monitors? Why did they reinvent them again with this and then again with this? And also because they were actually trying to do a vintage thing, they made these very deliberately have the vintage thing that would make everyone that was old-fashioned mono type people happy. They made a dense plastic front. It's polyester, but it's a, I'm not against this type of polyester. It's convex, so it's out of the way of the driver. But then for the prototypes that you'll notice actually have the same exact specs as the LS35As, except for they're the last kept speakers that play up to 55 kilohertz. They have the same exact port tuning frequency, and exact 2.2 kilohertz frequencies as this, but they actually sound more holographic, and they are actually more tuned to the what's called LS35As than these are. And when they designed these things, why didn't they actually make it follow the tradition of having the baffle actually recede? Because isn't it, isn't the rule that, like, you want to test a speaker like this, and then you want the baffle out of the way? Why did they make the baffle deliberately in the way? And then why would they test it in front when you are never ever you're supposed to listen to KEFs from the front, but instead from here? And then